Welcome to Tuesday Night Legacy, a commentary-driven dive into the different formats played at our home game store, Spellhold Games. Here's what we got for you this time. This time we have 2 rounds for you. This is Legacy rounds 2 and 3 from May 31st. We have Fred on the left playing a 4-color control deck. This is a pretty classic blue-white control deck that splashes green and red. Red specifically for the expressive iterations and some cards out of the sideboard, and green for Life from the Loam, just a 1-of, and 4 Uro Titans of Nature's Wrath, and a couple Sylvan Library for better card selection. Of course, it's got everything that white and blue wants to do, like swords and prismatic ending. It also runs a 1-of Terminus to be able to deal with problematic creatures that can't be removed with spot removal. And of course, it has some counterspells because it wouldn't be a blue deck without counterspells. And on the right, we have Mason playing a white-red equipment deck. This deck almost looks like Death and Taxes. It's got some Mother of Runes, Stoneforge Mystic, and Thalia, but that's where the comparisons end. This has a bunch of red mana in it for Magus of the Moon, Eidolon of the Great Revel to punish all of these cantripping blue decks, and then the secret best card of the deck is Fervent Champion. This allowing all of those equipments to basically almost equip for free, except for the Batterskull, and be able to crash in the turn that it is played. So let's see if Mason can get underneath Fred's control. We're going to have Mason start the game with the Mother of Runes, a great first turn here. Fred had to answer that on the spot, and he did with the Prismatic Ending, getting it out of there. Having Mother of Runes in play for Fred would have been super painful, basically the Terminus being the only answer to that card. We see the Stoneforge Mystic coming down for Mason, unanswered by Fred with a Force of Will or anything like that. Looking for an equipment and grabs the Sword of Fire and Ice. This doesn't have a ton of relevant protection text, but being able to shoot something for 2 and then draw a card when that creature hits is huge. Can turn a 1/1 into dealing 5 damage a turn, getting to draw with a white-red deck. Unheard of. We see Fred playing a Ponder, just playing a land and passing turn. Looks like Mason's stuck on 2 mana. Doesn't want to do anything because he's going to activate getting that Sword of Fire and Ice into play with the Stoneforge Mystic. Fred with the land here, sacrificing that Misty Rainforest. Getting a Tropical Island into play, grabbing that Sylvan Library. This is going to give him great card selection going forward here. But we do see Mason play the Fervent Champion. So this guy is just a 1/1 for 1 mana with First Strike and Haste. Also has equip abilities that target this guy, cost 3 less to activate. And that sword only has equip 2, so that's a free equip there. And it also pumps another attacking knight when it attacks. Unfortunately, Stoneforge Mystic is just a core. It is not a knight, so that ability is not relevant, but he's getting in there for 1 mana, getting to attack for 5 damage, and getting to draw that extra card. Pretty much one of the best value town hits that he could have. We see Fred casting a Prismatic Ending for Converge 3, getting the Sword of Fire and Ice off the field. Mason making his 3rd land drop of the game, being a Wasteland. All of Fred's lands are actually non-basic here, so that's a pretty good draw. We see another Fervent Champion coming down, so now they can pump each other, attacking for 4 here. It's actually going to be 5 with the Stoneforge Mystic also getting in. Thalia also representing a real threat to Fred, as all of his spells, a lot of his spells, are going to be non-creature spells. So he has that Thalia tax to deal with as well. Fred resolving his Sylvan Library trigger here. If this board is left unanswered, Fred is dead next turn. So he's got to do something. Looks like he has a little bit of dead draw in his hand. It looks like another Sylvan Library. Having 2 Sylvan Libraries isn't particularly useful. and very difficult to resolve. It's a lot of text. Yeah, Fred definitely in the tank about this one. Putting those 3 back on top, only drawing 1, can't take the extra 4 from the Sylvan trigger. Decides to go for a Brainstorm for 2 mana. And plays a Murktide Regent, which I don't have on his list here. Must have updated it. So this is a 7/7 in play right now. Mason deploys a 3rd Fervent Champion. And this is just way too much damage for Fred to deal with. Passes, and we're on to game 2. Starting with a Den of the Bugbear on Mason's side. This is a fun land. Taps for red. Can eventually turn into a creature and generate goblins as it attacks. Definitely more of a late game thing. Just a 1-of is usually good enough. We see that Eidolon come down. This is a huge threat to Fred as well, since he likes to cast so many spells. So using the Swords to Plowshares, taking 2 damage to get rid of it was super worth it for him. We see Mason deploy 3rd land. Arid Mesa going and getting probably Plains, I would guess. Has 2 red in play. Yep, there's the Plains. 2 open from Fred. 3 mana. Gonna be a Magus of the Moon. And Fred's gonna pick it up. And that is the end of round 2. Sometimes Magus is really good against these non-basic decks, especially if they're not able to answer it before it hits the battlefield. So, on to game 3. Or round 3. So I'm going to be honest, this one is basically the same control deck with red and green taken out. So, we're going to get started. Eric starting with a Scalding Tarn, passing the turn. Mason with the Prismatic Vista and passing turn. Just seeing a lot of fetch lands to start this game. Nobody wants to make the first move, but Mason will. Mason deciding to go and get a mountain. He still can make his land drop, unless he doesn't have it. We see a plateau into a Thalia. Guardian of Thraben. Eric with a response here. Probably going to cast a Brainstorm. That almost always is the case with the blue deck. With the Thalia coming down. There's the Brainstorm. Draw those 3 cards. See what's up there. Looks like there is a Swords to Plowshares. Got a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Some fun cards. Got a Narset. So Thalia definitely needs to be dealt with. Or else Eric is going to be in a very awkward position going forward. Jace and Mystic Sanctuary going back on top of the deck. Drawing into Jace next turn, probably a good idea. Yep. Gonna draw the Jace. Oh, that wasn't Jace. That was a Flooded Strand. I don't know what happened to Jace. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Jace is still in hand. 2 mana for that Swords to Plowshares. Get that Thalia right out of there. Gain some life. Thalia should be in exile at this point, but probably maybe be caught a little bit later. Alright, so a new card coming down here. Cemetery Gatekeeper. When it enters, going to exile a card from a graveyard. Decides to exile the Swords to Plowshares. Whenever a player plays a land or casts the spell, so basically, if he casts an instant for the rest of the game while this guy is alive, Eric will take 2 damage until this thing is dealt with. Pretty good card for 2 mana. So we're going to take 2 for that Swords, but he is going to also get out of there too. Mason catching that these 2 should be in exile. Gets rid of them. We're seeing a Narset come down. Parter of Veils on Eric's side. So this is going to stop Mason from drawing extra cards. This particular list does run Days Undoing, which says that each player is going to shuffle up their entire hand, graveyard, draw a new 7, but with Narset in play saying that your opponents can't draw more than 1 card, it would prevent drawing all but 1 of those cards. Basically, emptying your opponent of any cards and locking yourself into advantage. We're going to see a Lightning Bolt from Mason, getting rid of that Narset, removing that opportunity from the board. A Johnny Vengeant coming down from Mason. So this can tap down permanents that are already tapped, basically. And it has a lightning helix as well as the -2. And the -7 is Armageddon, one-sided, destroy all lands, target player controls. I guess you technically could target yourself. I don't know why you would. So we're seeing a Johnny at 4 up to 5. Only 3 turns away from being able to destroy all of Eric's lands. And a Still Moon Cavalier coming down. This is a protection from white and black, 2/1 from Eventide. Has a bunch of abilities. You can pay mana into it to give it flying first strike. +1/+0. This is going to be exceptionally good against this deck, as that is basically the only removal that it has. The Jace the Mind Sculptor coming down, bouncing the Still Moon Cavalier back to hand. Oh, this list doesn't have Jace the Mind Sculptor. I had to pull a generic list. I wasn't able to get the list before recording. Sorry about that. But we're seeing the Still Moon come right back down. There was a lightning bolt to kill that Snapcaster Mage, so Johnny stayed at his current loyalty, so he's up to 6, tapping down that Tundra, keeping Eric a little bit more off mana. Man, if Athalia was in play, that would be even more brutal. Eric's starting his turn here. Decides to brainstorm with Jace instead of bouncing the Still Moon. Of course, the 0 ability with Jace, very strong. I think it looks like Eric does have the opportunity to Daze Undoing, but he doesn't have Narset in play. Has access to a Teferi Time Raveler, but that does not answer Still Moon Cavalier, as Teferi is white. Has several prismatic endings, but cannot get to 4 pips to get rid of a Johnny Vengeant. Just going to play a Narset, not take her down and pass. Seeing the Sword of Fire and Ice come down, and a Fervent Champion, 4 mana. Of course, we all remember Fervent Champion. Gonna tick a Johnny up to 7 just to threaten that next turn. Still Moon Cavalier attacking probably Jace. Mason trying to decide the way he wants to attack here, since if he attacks with Fervent Champion at one of the Planeswalkers, he does not get the triggered ability. But it doesn't really matter, because he's already drawn a card for turn, and if he can't kill Narset, then he can't draw that extra card. So he attacks directly at Narset with the Fervent Champion, and the Still Moon removes Jace from play. They're going to catch that extra counter in just a second here. 3 damage is going to be dealt to Narset, not 2. There we go. Still Moon Cavalier, yes, being a knight, so was able to give that +1/+0 to Still Moon, although it didn't matter. Jace was only at 2. Okay, we're seeing a Swords to Plowshares getting rid of the Knight, and then a Daze Undoing. Mason being denied card draw from this, only getting to draw 1 card. Eric refills his hand, but he is out of mana, and Daze Undoing does say end your turn. And so Eric did not have any way to answer either that creature or Mason blowing up all of his lands. And so he conceded, and we are on to game 2. Eric with a Ponder, looking at some cards, decides he doesn't like them, does like them. A little bit of manipulation of the... No, that makes it sound like he was... No. Just resolves that Ponder normally. Really wanted to decide what he was going to draw, and drew it, and we are on to a couple turns later here. Mother of Runes being deployed from Mason. Looks like it is fully resolved at this point, so protection is live. The Fervent Champion coming into play, attacking for 1 haste damage. And Eric deciding to cycle. Let's see if we have it. We do not have it. We're back in it. It was Timeless Dragon. So we see a plane cycling from Eric going and getting a planes and being able to deploy the Monastery Mentor. A classic win condition of the white-blue control deck, making all of those monks. It is going to be answered by a lightning bolt here, getting it out of play. No force of will to protect it. Mason just attacking for another one. A second Monastery Mentor being deployed. See if Mason has a second lightning bolt. Grabs a mountain. Could be. It is not. Going to Mason's turn here, we have a Caracas. 3 mana is going to get that Still Moon Cavalier into play. So this does have protection from the Mentor and all of the monks, although a single Mentor can grow into an army quite quickly, getting around a single creature with protection from white. Mason does have access to 2 creatures with protection from white with the Mother of Runes activations. But that might not be enough. We will see. A Tundra out of the deck for Eric. Untapping, going to his turn. Got a full grip there. Looks like at least 5 cards. If at least 1 or 2 of those are cantrips, he's in good business. Looks like a Jace. Jace the Mind Sculptor into play. Bouncing the Still Moon Cavalier. Trying to recreate last game, but this time Mother of Runes is in play, giving protection to the Still Moon. Protection from blue, keeping it in play. That Venusaur is one of those 1/1 monks with prowess. Seeing the Stoneforge Mystic, gonna go and get, oops, the Umezawa's Jite. A solid artifact enchantment. Not an enchantment at all. An equipment to deal with all of these monks that would be generated from the Monastery Mentor. Trying to think how damage is going to happen. Looks like 2 damage is going to go through keeping the monk. A little confused. So Monastery Mentor is going to block the Fervent Champion, killing the Fervent Champion, I would have thought. I'm not entirely certain how that all happened, but at the end of the day, the protection from white and the triggers from the Umezawa's Jite are able to... Oh, you know what happened is Fervent Champion has first strike. So Fervent Champion would deal its 1 damage first, and then Jite would get the triggers, and then it would be able to shrink and kill the Monastery Mentor before damage was dealt, keeping the Fervent Champion alive. The Jite was dealt with a prismatic ending, but we see a Sword of Fire and Ice put on and equipped, and that is going to be way, way, way too much damage for Eric to deal with. And there you have it, a great showing from Mason and his red-white equipment deck, taking down 2 control decks in a row. Good job, Mason. Thanks for watching the video. I hope that you enjoy the content on the channel, and if you do, please consider subscribing to us and liking the videos that you think are really cool. If you want to know the deck lists of any of the decks that are featured in these videos, they're always in the description of this video below. And thanks as always to Spellhold Games for allowing us to record in the space. And we'll see you next time with another modern video. It's going to be Goblins versus Hammer Time. We'll see you then.